I am Setche. I'm a diversity, inclusion, and equity consultant and trainer, and I help individuals and organizations build bridges that drive inclusive and equitable communities.
Hey, it's Kellen, and today on Diversified Game, I have our Cameroonian sister who lives in the States, but she's originally from Cameroon, Setche, who is all about diversity and inclusion and teaches corporations, organizations, nonprofits, wherever you're at. I mean, she'll even teach you one-on-one if you can pay the invoice. She's going to give us the game, not just on diversity and inclusion, but she is rare, folks. This is the first Cameroonian woman that I know who is into country western music. And you're going to see her video throughout this thing. And she's really put time into this. This is not any she's all in on country music. So she's going to give us the game and how she uses her singing talent, her music and videos to even push diversity and inclusion. Setche, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Thank you very much, Kellen. I'm so excited to be here, and I am doing great. It's a
Good.
wonderful day out here today.
Awesome. I should have said how for you now, but I want to.
I did fine, no, I did fine. Mango too how.
Yes, yes. You guys, we have to do it. Diversity, inclusion. You guys got to learn,
Yes.
this Cameroonian pidgin. But
Yeah.
let the people know, how did a young lady come from Cameroon, not just get into diversity and inclusion, but country music as well? Please tell your story.
That's a great question. So I came from Cameroon to the US to study engineering. I studied chemical engineering at Iowa State University. And I think that was my first exposure to country music and culture. We used to go hay riding, and someone would pick a lot of fruits in the farm and then would ride the tractors, and someone would teach us country line dancing. And I was like, I love this. And then I eventually joined the Onion Creek Band, which was more like square dancing. It is really, really traditional. And I just loved it. And I've lived around the United States, so many different states, and everywhere I went, I found the most happening country club, so I could continue country line dancing. But how I got into that song in particular was my friend Shamara, who is African American in Mississippi. She sings so well, and I begged her, please teach me how to sing like you. And she tried so hard to teach me, but no matter how hard I tried, she kept saying, honey, you sound so country. And I was thinking, oh, you can't be black and country. So I was like, I don't want to sound country. I want to sound like you. She's like, no, honey, it's okay. Embrace it. You sound country and you do a lot of country things too. It's okay. Embrace it. So I went around town interviewing everyone that I met, informally asking, do you think you're country? And if so, what makes you country? And I put all that data together. Being an engineer, I like to analyze things. So I came up with a formula to calculate how country I am. And I realized I was 87.39% country. And I was like, oopsies, okay, I guess I am. I'm going to write a song about it. So that's when I wrote Black Country Girl about 8 years ago in Mississippi.
Wow. And you didn't just keep it country, which is the part that I even showed my wife, and she's like, I love it, because you kept that. And even if you look at her hat, you guys, is that a Barminda?
Yes.
Oh, man. You kept it Afro Country. I mean, Have you seen anybody else do this? Is there anyone else you can collab with that says, yes, we've done this? Like, this is its own sub-genre of two different, cultures.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I don't know I've not seen Afro Country before, but I would love to see that. I would love to collaborate with other people. Now there were a couple artists in African American artists who inspire me a lot. It's not necessarily Afro Country, but I just love their style and their authenticity. And one is Rissy Palmer, and another is Mickey Guyton. And I love their music. I see the authenticity is coming out of like Racy Palmer. And that inspires me to be my authentic self too. So that's why I kept it country. I kept it Afro country. I don't have to give up one part of me in order to embrace another part. I can integrate both cultures.
And how have you been received by the when you do, you perform by the traditional country crowd, as well as the not just African crowd, but you got black folk to be like, okay, I mean, we can get down with the country, but
Uh-huh.
you done mixed it. Like to them, that's country. Like to what in LA, when you're in LA and they say country, they don't mean it as like a compliment. So
Uh-huh.
when you get black folks who are country, but then they're calling you, that is country, Afro country. Like, how have you been received by all, sides?
Actually, the reception has been really great even before I produced the song. Um, and like I mentioned, I wrote it 8 years ago when I lived in Mississippi working at Caterpillar. So I have been performing the song even before I produced it this year, and I have been using it also for unconscious bias trainings all before now. And the reception has been really great, both from black and non-white people and African people. African people are like super excited because they're just in like shock. Like, what? And you have no idea what messages I get from some people, some fans and supporters from out of the blue. Like, you have no idea how much your song makes me smile. Because I live in Africa and I love country music, and to see the combination, I'm like, where is this from? So yeah, it's really amazing to get such comments from random parts of Africa. Um, yeah, about how just excited people are that I was able to integrate both cultures in a song, and it's an integration that you don't normally expect. People even think that the words "black country girl" is an oxymoron, but the
Yeah.
reality is there's been a lot of black people in country music and culture. There, we just don't see it in the mainstream, but it is there. So it sounds like an oxymoron because of the lack of representation. But out of all the cowboys and cowgirls in the old white west, 1 in 4 of them were black. And we could go on and on about the history and contributions of black people in the white west, but that might be another interview.
Well, you already know we had some other talks for a platform, the African Diaspora News Channel, and you're gonna, cut some stuff and educate and almost, I think, entertain some folks. Because some folks are gonna be like, "Nah, this can't be serious," until they hear your music, because you are truly, you're not just line dancing. You're doing even the traditional dances, but you
Mhm.
make it look good, and that
Mhm.
you are, I mean, it's the vibe. It's a full vibe in its own. So we're already talking, folks, about some other stuff. So you're gonna see her on some other platforms. I truly think you have $1 million idea in creating a genre that I've only seen years ago one other like group maybe do heavy metal in Africa, but I've never
Oh.
seen people do country in
Mhm.
Africa where it got noticed. And music is music. Now,
Yes.
how do you go about saying I'm going to blend the two? Is it something? Is it a natural thing? Do you actually say, okay, if I do this verse catered towards Afro, I'm going to do this verse catered towards country and pop? Like, how do you put it all together?
That is a great question. That is why the version I have published and produced is like version 5. Because so the original beats were made in Cameroon by a really good producer, M1 Studios, and I wanted it to be a fusion from the get-go. And although the producer is really good and familiar with country music, they're not inundated with country music in Cameroon. So he did a great job, but it was missing the country. It was the country. It was very very subtle, and so I wanted to bring back more country into it. So when I came back to America, I tried to find producers who would be able to blend the two. Nearly every producer I tried to work with said, "Mm-mm, let's just start over and let's make it country." So they were like, either you can have the African version and you have the country version. I was like, no, I need it to be the two, but most producers wouldn't touch it, and they will refer me to other people, and then I'll get to that person, and they'll refer me to someone else. They'll say, I don't want to touch it. They kept saying, let's just start over and make it country. But finally, I found a producer who was brave enough to experiment. And I think he did a fabulous job adding, building up, building onto what had already been done in Cameroon. And we actually put my tradition, it wasn't just Afro pop mixed with country. We put some of my traditional music style in it, like Moninkim. That's why somewhere halfway through the song, we get into this fusion, this blend. It sounds a little bit like Middle Eastern, sounds a little bit like Indian, sounds a little bit like Moninkim, which is from my tribe. um, sounds and then sounds a little bit like country, and then comes back to the regular blend. Yeah, so it's been an interesting project. And then it also has that reggaeton feel. Some people tell me, "Oh, I thought this was reggae, but no, it's country." Oh no, but it's Indian. And, I love having that mix, but it was not easy.
How important is it for you to, push to people when they're pulling all these different, because, someone will say reggae, raga,
Mhm.
two different genres. You
Yeah,
might do a song where it's rap, but then if you go to the UK and put a mix, it'll be grime or garage. And those are two different things depending on how
right.
you do the. Does it get to you where you like, I just do music? I'm like Prince. I just do music. You call it what you want to call it, vibe to it.
Hmm.
Like, does it ever get frustrating? Or are you still kind of just educating everybody still
Yeah,
that you can blend it?
that's a great question. It's not frustrating to me. There are some comments that I get sometimes, and at first it makes my blood go up. But when I think about it, I'm like, no, actually, that's good. It's let's talk about that. It's part of the conversation. Like some people would say, oh, what is Indian music doing in all of this? And they watch the video and go, what is Indian doing here? And I have to, or what is Arabic music doing here? And I have to show them, first of all, the costume I'm wearing is not Indian, it's Cameroonian. And that music also is this or that. But we have that conversation and I show them how we're all interconnected. And like people said, oh, you were doing belly dance and this. What has belly dance got to do with Africa or whatever? And then I have to educate them, like, by the way, there is a lot of belly dancing in Africa, and Egypt is in Africa too. You know, in the
Yeah.
earlier versions of the song, there was a lot more of that mix in it. But I saw it as an education opportunity when people say, what is this doing here and what is that doing here? Because they don't know that Africa is so diverse, right? It's an education opportunity. So no, it doesn't. The conversations that come up are really good. It might make my blood go up a little bit at first, but upon thinking about it, I'm like, this is a great conversation. Another conversation that happens is like, well, you're singing about the South, but I thought you're supposed to be singing about country Western culture, Southern culture, and country Western culture, different things. There's overlap and so on. And I'm like, yes, let's have that conversation. So I love that everyone's taking something else different out of it and that it makes some people confused. That's the point. We need to get out of our boxes and our comforts, and we need to dish the expectations we have of each other and of ourselves. Let's get out of these boxes we've put each other in.
Well, I live outside of the box, and even 80 years from now in death, I don't want to be in a box. But you have people who, in some elements of their life, it's I'm out of the box, but then it'll come to that one thing, and it's you can't move me from here, whether it's religion, morals, whatever. But you're totally, at least with your creativity, out of that box. Like this outfit that you have, this is all custom, right? You've made this.
Right. Yeah, I made it.
So you took the hat and then you got your African, but how did you make your shirt? Because I'm just not that creative. So I want to know, like, I'm seeing your shirt and I'm like, is that a vest? Is it a shirt? How did you make that?
Great question. Ironically, I bought it just as it is. I saw it and right away I was like, that's it. That's my signature shirt. I bought
Okay.
it in a country store called San Diego Saddlery. That's where I bought a lot of my I that's where I bought a lot of my country outfits, at least those that I've bought in California. I've had many country outfits over the years. So I have like 12 different hats and like four different boots. um, but yeah, this I got it just the way it was, and I thought, wow, what a great fit. But
Okay.
this one I gave a lady, a country lady. I gave her the hat and I gave her the cloth and I gave her the idea and she put all the pieces together. I gave her all
I
the ideas and she put them all together. Whether it was my jeans or my shirts or other things that had to modify, she did them for me.
I think you got something with the clothing because those hats, those could go anywhere. I mean, you could see a famous person, you can name it, for whomever. Two Chains could get away with rocking that as tall as he is and putting
That
that
is
on.
a great idea. I need to update my merchandise. I need to start my merchandise.
Yeah, you start with a couple. That's a high end hat. It's
Mhm.
not. It's nothing cheap because this is for those who know and see fashion as art. And
Mhm.
I could just see it. Now, when it comes to diversity and inclusion, I'm going to let me pull it back because you and I have had private conversations. Some of that I may want to talk about. Some of it I don't because it has to
Okay.
do with the business and how to push. But
Mhm.
you're in California right now, where I'm from Cali, so I can talk like this. People in
Uh-huh.
California think, oh, there's no racism. We're all dating each other.
Uh-huh.
You can be an alien. You can be a dog. You can date a dog in California. Um,
Uh-huh.
how do you see? Do you see a difference between diversity done in California and inclusion, racism, and Mississippi? A lot of people say they just make it look better in California, but I want to know, you being someone who has can kind of be non-biased because you're not from this country and you've been able to look at it through
Oh,
a
there's
different.
no such thing as non-bias. Everyone's got bias. So we just have to admit it so the people listening to it can be objective.
Yeah, well, you're not as biased as me, who, if I go on the Cali side
Right.
and say we're not as racist as Mississippi, where in
That's,
Mississippi and Louisiana, where I went to school in Louisiana, some of the
that's true.
rednecks were some of the nicest people. When my car broke down, the women would be
Yes.
out there even helping me push the car with the men. And I'm like, do I got a
Yes.
woman pushing my car? Hold on, I got to,
Yes.
you doing the thing, but they all just jumped out of their truck. Whereas in
Yeah.
California, ain't nobody really helping you like that. You almost have to be on fire. So I'm totally biased.
Okay.
But just like, what is your perception and opinion on how diversity and inclusion is done in both places?
That is a great question. So actually, I started my diversity inclusion career in Mississippi when I was working at Caterpillar. And one of the managers just noticed how I carried myself around work and how I help people feel included in different things and how I outreach to the community. And they decided to make me diversity inclusion specialist. So someone else, they ended up hiring someone else to take over my engineering workload, and then I did diversity inclusion. So that's where I started this work and realized that, oh, this is what I was born to do, because I was able to bring so many parts of myself to work, not just my engineering. I was able to bring my artistic side and leverage that in the trainings that I developed and things like that. So how does doing this work in Mississippi compare? How does it compare to California? I love the sentence you said earlier that yeah, California makes it look better. Because to be honest, um, in Mississippi, yes, there's many structural issues, but the people are nice. But don't get me wrong, niceness is not a replacement for inclusion or equity. It is not a replacement. It's better than not being nice. But there is that family feel, at least in my experience. The people were warm, both black and white. They were warm. Did I meet some people who said really racist things? Yes. But guess what? I've met such people in California as well. So the challenge is, I feel like in California, because we have the impression, oh, we live in a diverse place, everyone's cool. We don't actually take the time to get to know each other. We just think
Mm.
because we're next to each other, we rub shoulders, maybe we work with each other, that's all good. And so we don't get to take the time to form those deep bonds. And we don't take the time to work on the systemic issues that need to be worked on because we think it's enough to just get along with each other. But that's not enough. Diversity and inclusion is not just about getting along with each other. We have to look at the social and economic justice part of it.
Can you go deeper and talk about, especially for the American audience, maybe some of those two in the UK, the difference of when you say getting to know each other? Because in America, and I've joked with this with influencer that we deal with, and I won't say her name; she might not like it, but how in America, when someone says, "How are you?" by the time the person answers, the other person's, down the block. But in Africa and, in most of the world, when you say, "How are you?" or "You're in Kenya, uhaligani,"
Uh
they
huh.
really want to know, how are you
How are
and your
you?
family? You know,
Yes,
can you talk about the difference and the culture shock with that?
absolutely. I'll tell you a story. So when I came here, and people say, "How are you?" and I said, "I'm fine," or "I'm not fine," and I keep going on and on. They're like surprised that I actually said that I was actually going on and on. And I remember one time, um, someone asked me, "How are you?" I said, "I'm not fine. My luggage got stolen, and it's been frustrating. Try to retrieve it." And like, "Oh, good for you, good for you." Because whenever what, no matter what they asked you and you answered, people always said, "Good for you, good for you." And I'm like, what?
Wow.
I'm talking about my frustration, and you're like, "Oh, good for you, good for you." And you see someone say, "How are you?" and someone says, "Not fine. My dog just died." They're like, "Oh, good for you, good for you."
Wow, that sounds like a YouTube skit
And
to
then,
do.
yeah, another thing that I noticed is people say, "I love you" a lot, and which I totally admire. In my country, we don't say "I love you" much, but we show it in other ways. Like it's implied. The way our parents tell you "I love you" is study hard, eh? Don't talk to boys in school, eh? It's they'll talk and hold their ears like that. That's their own "I love you." It's not "I love you," so it's still a little bit uncomfortable. But I noticed in America, then the "I love you" has become cheapened too. You hear someone just scream at their mom on the phone and hang up with "I love you," and I'm like, what? Like the conversation that just happened, and they just end with like a very "I love you, bye," and I thought, oh, but yeah, that's been interesting. And I remember trying to replicate saying "I love you" with my parents. It was a very interesting experience. At first when I told my dad "I love you," it was silence, crickets. I was like, "Dad, I said I love you. Aren't you saying anything?" And he said, "Mm-hmm."
Peking don't crash.
Saying anything? He said, "I said mm-hmm now." Eventually, he graduated to "okay," and then later to "thank you," and then eventually "I love you too."
Yes, and he loves you because he put you through school, and
Yes.
you really know you love your daughters, especially when you negotiate the bride price, people. But that's a different subject.
That
Um,
is a different subject.
um, but no, that's just an eye opener. So, what do you do to help corporations? I want to speak to you, corporations, because a lot
Hmm.
of times they think because they might have someone black in a department or have a diversity person, and sometimes they're not even black, they're a Mzungu or an
Right.
Abroni. They're a white
Uh-huh.
person, people, I'm saying. And
Uh-huh.
they think, oh, at least we're talking about it. But what do you do and to corporations that's measurable? Because it's
Hmm.
really their bottom line that they're covering when they bring in diversity and inclusion officers. What do you do
Absolutely.
that's probably different than most?
What I do that's different than most is my approach in general. So earlier in my career in diversity and inclusion, I had the same approach where I thought it was about helping people get along, just respect, authenticity, and things like that. But that approach works on the symptoms of oppression, the symptoms of systems of bias, the symptoms of injustice. So my approach is to look at the roots, especially in how I educate employees. Okay, yeah, we'll have unconscious bias training, but how did we get here? What's the roots of race? How did race come about? What are the things in your system and in your processes? So with my engineering background, so that really helps a lot. So I look at the systems and processes, the hiring processes. Where are people falling off? Where are different kinds and demographics of people falling off? We look at those pipelines and see how it plays out in that process. So my what I do different is I look at the equity side a lot. It's not just about let's get along, let's put those number ups, but how can we make sure our processes and systems are designed or developed in a way that has everybody in mind? So, for example, we would also look at succession planning. How many people do you have in the pipeline who are ready now for certain critical roles who are from underrepresented minority groups? How many people do you have that are being developed for potential to take over potential critical roles that are from underrepresented minority groups? Also, how are you building an environment where these people feel valued and heard and like their work here is taken seriously? How are we making sure we're developing them? How are we recruiting from the right sources? So I was just saying, we don't, the black people are not applying, Hispanic people are not applying. Or are we going to meet them where they are? Are we investing in our communities? When we talk about diversity and inclusion, is it just a branding exercise? Or do we really care about the actual outcomes and working conditions of the communities we're claiming to care about? Are we using D&I just as an invisibility cloak for 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 other things we might be doing that might not be that ethical or that might not be advantageous for the people in the communities we live in? Or are we actually doing things to improve the lives of these communities? So I ask the deeper questions in the way I approach my work and when I do my work. And that can be measured through many ways. We have both we have both hard data and soft data. And soft data is like people's perceptions of the different things that are going on. And hard data would be in our would be seeing the changes in the diversity of our employee base, of our customer base. It would also be the changes in promotion levels and things like that, and retention rates and turnover rates for our underrepresented minorities.
Okay, okay. Well, I love that because corporations, they think corporate, and it's hard for them to come out of their shell and their box.
Mm-hmm.
Now, with the success that you have had, and the best is yet to come, we truly believe that. What is a community give back that you are doing or that you want to do in the future?
Sorry, say that again.
What is a community give back that you are doing or that you want to do in the future?
Oh, great question. I don't even like the word give back because the community is giving as much to me as I am giving to it. Like it's a symbiotic relationship. It's not me giving back to the community, it's us building each other. And some of those include some of the things I'm doing right now are bridge building events. So, our country and our individual communities are highly polarized and we're not talking to each other. Everyone thinks the other person's the devil. So I've been doing some community building circles in our community, trying to build bridges, bring people from different sides to start to build relationships and bonds so that we can actually see each other's pain and start to develop interest in collaborating together to build a society that really works for all of us and not become slave to this perception that this group of people they're the enemy. This one's the reason why I might be suffering financially, or if this one keeps going this way our country is going to die. So I've been doing a lot of that, and I also work a lot with the populations that are experiencing homelessness, because I'll be honest, I did not prior to several years ago, I did not understand some of the systemic issues that lead to poverty. I didn't realize how poverty is a business for some people. Like some people need others to be poor so that they can maintain their profits. So it's been a lot getting involved in this. It's been enlightening and eye-opening getting involved in these communities and advocating for them and doing programs for them. So I'm part of the Voices of Our City Choir. here in San Diego, which is a choir that's catering to people who are experiencing homelessness, and that has opened my eyes a lot. That's why I refuse the word give back for me because I grow and learn so much. And we all have, at least to some extent, a savior complex. And if we don't check that, monitor that, we will go into this community things with that complex and it could make things worse. So um yeah, I the community gives me more than I can ever give it.
Well, that's probably the best answer that I have ever heard. So I know when I'm asked that, where I'm going to take that from. And oh, I got it. It's going to be full of drama, you know.
Mhm.
Oh, because that's what I'm going to do when I'm asked that question. But I love that, and it's genuine, and I definitely feel the vibe. So if the audience could do one thing for you, you know, to strengthen the message and push, you know, is it, you know, sharing a video? Is it sharing a link? Is it telling their, you know, bosses, hey, this is who we need to bring in to the school district, to the corporation? What could that thing be to, you know, help you out?
Thank you so much for that question. So to help me out, go to my website blackcountrygirl.com and scroll down a little bit and you'll see a link there to put your email address in there. So put your email address in there and you'll join my street team of bridge builders. We are bridge builders and yeah, and through that I will be communicating more ways in which you can help, whether it's through participating in challenges that would help people um bring out their authentic selves more, or it's through challenges that will help us build bridges, or it's through challenges that will just help us have fun, or it is by or whether it's buying merchandise like this. Just go ahead and put your email address in that funnel on my website blackcountrygirl.com and we will be in touch and you can join my street team and help me expand the movement.
Well, you guys have got the game. I want you to make sure that you share the game with somebody because this is the type of story that we need more of. People being themselves, not following any trends. You know, we're going to take this off air and talk until your next meeting. So you guys like,
Okay.
share, subscribe, and be blessed, y'all.
Thank you everyone. Thank you so much.